whilst we are so connected in terms of social media, we have never been more disconnected in terms of our feelings and emotions and our sense of belonging. Gen Zs are very different from millennials. Millennials still want to get to sit at the table and see what they can change. Gen Zs don't want the table. Like, just take your table and go away. So that's the thing, because now more than ever, we are impatient. We're very impatient because there's a lot of information coming at us. Things are changing really fast. So we can't stay and wait for anything to follow any kind of process, and things like that. And all of those things really affect, the groundedness, if there's a word like that, of how we can stay centered as individuals and as a community or a group.
I think there's quite a few reasons that people feel they can't be honest about mental health at work, but I think one of the biggest ones that I've experienced has been, there's absolutely policies in place, there's initiatives in place in the workplace to help support your well-being, but if people aren't taking advantage of those initiatives, then other people aren't going to pick them up, because you need to see your peers and your colleagues saying, I'm having a mental health day, or I'm going to this wellbeing webinar because I really want to learn about practices in place.
We're living in very uncertain times, and these amounts of uncertainty are detrimental to people having a sense of safety, right? And in multiple ways, like in terms of their financial prospects, like will they be able to land a job post-graduation? And in general, I think, and the recent coronavirus-induced lockdowns across the globe have only added to the exact crisis, right? And in multiple ways, we're seeing how technology is disrupting our lives, making jobs redundant, and the entire rising waves of nationalism across the globe have cast doubts on whether it would be easy for people to travel and work in other areas of their choosing, right?
There's one other thing else that people don't usually think of, is that when we take breaks, we go on social media as a way of taking breaks. You have to understand that the brain actually works the same way when we're on social media as when we're working. So that's not necessarily a break or rest. So we have to redefine what we call rest. And that means being able to think about any other thing else apart from work, and focusing on having conversations with family that's not related to work, and making it just, should I say, like a routine to just switch off from social media now and then, and take a break from everything else, from your phone when you get back home. Try not to keep your phone beside your bed. Things like just very small, light tips.
When you work in such a corporate environment, there are just constant expectations to succeed. You've always got to deliver 110% all the time. You've always got to be switched on. And one of the things that I do all day, every day, is sit on Zoom calls, having conversations, and trying to throw around ideas. And I'm quite an ambivert. Like I'm extroverted, but also introverted. And so after a couple of hours of conversation, I'm exhausted. And so I think just things like that, where you've always got these expectations to really be this elite corporate, professional, can be really hard to bring your authentic self, to take time out to talk about how you're feeling, or just bring who you are as a person to the table without having this facade on.
I think one of the best ways that companies can expect people to empower people to be more authentic is by showing different types of leaders, and by having them be more open.
If you know that you are safe from the consequences of your actions, or you are safe to be yourself, respectful, absolutely, but you're safe to say your mind and to act in a certain way and to bring your opinions to the table, and that I'm not going to take that and diminish who you are in my eyes and in my mind, or anything like that. I am giving you the permission to show up more authentically every single time I do that.
If you get to a point where you feel comfortable in your own skin, where you're just happy, with who you are at that time, you can definitely be yourself. But it goes both ways. People have to create the kind of environment that enables you to feel that safety. And if we have such an environment, and even this on social media, that if you talk about your mental health, you're going to have the backing of most people. then you're going to be able to do that. And that's the kind of environment that our organizations are creating, where we make it very, very absolutely normal to talk about your mental health without being stigmatized for it.
We're in an era where it's like your sense of self is tied to the amount of work you do or the outcomes of the work you do. So when you're not working, it feels like, who am I if I'm not my work? You know, that type of thing. And that's something that we need to be very conscious about.
Just being able to make that distinction about what exactly is work and what part does, should I say pleasures, where do they come in? It's very important. And just like you said, I think just being able to find, be intentional about setting boundaries, just being able to note down what exactly it is that is work and what exactly it is that isn't work is very important, so you can make the clear distinction and know when you're doing whichever one.
It doesn't have to be 50-50. I think a lot of times when we think of balance, we think it has to be 50-50. But I think it's okay if it's 30-70, if it's 50-50, if it's 20-80, as long as the ball doesn't drop.
In terms of prioritize your time. In the sense, a lot of times I think, especially young people, they tend to devalue their own time with regards to everything else. We have to start looking at time as a very precious commodity and start, treating it with a lot more respect. Get that kind of complete detachment from work, I believe.
For me, professionally, I'm always in social media. Personally, I'm always in social media. So I'm definitely consuming it too much, and it really makes me stressed out and anxious. So I think we need to be more aware of how much time we're spending in platforms like social, and really take a break and realize that, we need a bit more normalcy and focus on the normal parts of life. I actually moved my bed out of my bedroom into the living space and my desk and my office into my bedroom so that I could actually close the door at the end of the day to my working space. So I was done, right? I didn't have to think about it. I wasn't in an environment where work was kind of, in the corner of my eye, and I felt like I had to go keep checking emails. And it was honestly the best thing I could have done. So if you have access to be able to have a separate room or a separate workspace, I think that's a really, really just tangible thing that you can do to have a bit better alignment. But the other thing that I did was just take lunch breaks. Schedule them in your calendar for an hour a day where you actually go and eat a good meal, take a walk if you can, do something active, and actually take that time out to break your day up from work as well.
I think the first thing I did was to actually delete apps that keep me on my phone for a long time. So because most times if I pick up my phone, that means I'm going to end up, I want to check everything at the same time. If I want to check social media, I have to check my emails, I have to check LinkedIn. So for me, it was just being able to delete all of those apps from my phone and have them on my laptop. And it's just much more of work for me to actually stand up from the bed or from wherever I'm sitting to go to my laptop to check those apps, to check LinkedIn or to check my emails, for example. It's not just the stigma for mental health, it's the stigma for not being able to be weak or be liable, not to be seen as a liability. And that's why people are not really speaking up. Stigma has to be countered with action and not just words and so many mental trainings, which are just maybe just surface level, should I say, reactions, to existing cultures of, just people these days have mental trainings at workplaces.
I think first we need to address the issue of shame. And it's such a powerful thing that, it shapes the way we show up in any place, including the workplace, for a lot of people, is this idea that, if I open up my entire self, then maybe I will not be enough for this space. If I show up and today I'm weak and tomorrow I cry and the day after I'm upset, will I be accepted as much as the days that I'm happy and productive? So I think we need to address shame, we need to address psychological safety, and we definitely need to do more with regards to, walking the talk as against just being tokenistic in our approach.
If our leaders are leading from the top and saying they're not okay, then we're going to start to speak up.
If we have employers who are open about their own mental health, about being stressed, most times these days we have people who come up with stories about how they work 24 hours a day and work 48 hours a day. It's like if you have more hours in a day, they need it. Having a culture where employers are very much open about those times where they don't feel up to it, where they don't feel like working, making it normal for people to seek help for those things, for those little things. That's the best way to counter such stigma. Stigma has to be countered with action and not just words.
Reframing sickness leaves as wellness leaves, and where the top management spoke about it in the meeting where all the employees were present and told them that, hey, these are trying times, and we completely understand that you might want to take a leave just for taking care of your mental health. That's completely fine, and we in fact give you more additional leave so that you can make use of them.
There's something that we don't talk about enough, and that's sustainable work environment. That means actually interior decoration that actually makes people feel more comfortable about where they work from. That's so important. It's such a very difficult conversation to have now, especially now that most people are working from home. But you can also have that discussion with the staff to make sure they have the appropriate environments, making sure they stay away from the bed, and trying to make a differentiation between where they're working from and where they go to sleep and where they go to eat and all of that.
For the management, right from the top leadership, to address it and normalize these conversations and these discussions, and to emphasize to all employees that there's not going to be a detrimental impact on their careers or on their perceptions in their job due to them being open about it.
We need to definitely talk about, the idea that rest is this thing that is taking me away from being productive as against this thing that helps me to become productive. It's something that we need some sort of like a perspective shift on. I think we need to realize how rest is an active thing, so when you rest, when you play, those are actual things that rejuvenate and restore you and reboot and all of those things, as against, oh my gosh, I'm rested, I'm supposed to be working, or I'm missing out on something, and all of that.
I've had a bit of a personal breakthrough in managing my mental health recently. And for me, it was discovering free yoga on YouTube. And so I actually challenged myself initially to do 30 days of yoga in a row. And I previously just did not have any interest in yoga. It has honestly changed my life, and it's changed my mental health outlook. It's true rest, so rest away from technology. It's taking time for me. I'm being active. I'm challenging myself with new yoga poses. And here I am, I'm a yogi and I love it. So I think for, managing your own mental health, finding things like yoga, like exercise, something that's active and away from your work and away from your day-to-day life is super, super beneficial.
Just to drop a mail to your people you're working with every now and then, checking them, like, how are you doing? Do you want to talk about something that's bothering your mind? And likewise, if you feel like there's some relationship that you had in office that's been a bit strained, I think that's been like the biggest thing for me, in the sense that a small amount of human kindness can go a long way. We're social animals at the end of the day, and the fact that there are people to have your back despite how things might go,